So, good evening. Ito ay isang mabilisang discussion lang sa mga major points ng Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. So, itong slide na to ay ginawa ito ng mga econ students under my class. So, here, there are four topics, yung economic globalization, and then yung period before the Bretton Woods system, and then the Bretton Woods system, and then the multinational corporation. So, ang sinasabi lang dito, yung economic globalization, ang focus nito yung independence ng world economies. Interdependence, meaning to say, yung interconnectedness ng mga economies. So, this is because yung cross-border trade ay parang ano na siya, nag-expand na siya. So, nagkaroon tayo ng concept ng exportation and then importation, and then because of this, naging multi-directional ang flow ng mga commodities, even services, international capital, and then pati yung technology ay nag-spread out na rin throughout the globe. So dito sa before the Bretton Woods system, parang sinasabi na ito yung period bago magkaroon ng tinatawag na standardized na yung world currency. So sa part na ito, nagkakaroon ng comparison sa period before globalization at saka yung global world para makita natin whether meron bang pattern. So, ang sabi dito, kung i-compare natin yung global economic system noon tsaka ngayon in terms of transportation, dati ay railroads and steamships lang. Pero ngayon meron tayong mga airplanes. And then in terms of communication, dati telegraph, pero ito ay uh, nag-evolve at meron na tayong internet. And then, ito yung mga similarities ng economic system noon tsaka ngayon. Una, meron ng large scale flow of capital. Kasi kung maalala nyo sa Philippine history, di ba merong galleon trade? At yung mga products from Europe ay nakakarating na sa Pilipinas, maging yung mga capitals. Halimbawa, yung mga golds dito na nakukuha ay tinatransport to Europe or to Spain in particular. At from here ay nag-spread yung nagiging capital siya ng Spain dahil under tayo noon ng period ng colonization. And then meron ding large-scale immigration, ibig sabihin large-scale movement of people. Uh, Pwedeng due to war o kaya naman ay meron tayong tinatawag ng mga environmental refugees. Halimbawa yung kanilang mga yung environment kung saan sila nakatira, nasisira, and then they have to move from one geographical area to another. And then may pangatlo, yung specialization based on the law of comparative advantage. Ang idea kasi dito sa comparative advantage, yung the country focuses on that commodity which that country is parang has advantage over other countries. Paano mini-measure yung advantage? Pwedeng una, yung availability ng resources. Pangalawa, yung yung technologies also available for the production of those commodities. At pangatlo, lesser ang cost ng production. So, ang sinasabi sa global economic system, actually, we cannot produce all the things that we need. So, we have to import or pwede din tayong mag-export naman ng mga products na meron tayong comparative advantage. So, yung specialization noon pa man yung tinatawag na craftsmanship. Halimbawa, kung ngayon titignan natin saan bang area mabibili ang pinakamasarap na halimbawa puto, saan pinakamaganda gawa ang bag or ang gitara, o yun yung parang nag-e-embody ng concept ng law of comparative advantage. And then ang emphasis dito because economies are interdependent, so kailangan may free trade. So nation states should eliminate all the barriers to trade. Okay, and then we have here next natin. So, meron din ditong comparison ng mga problems na na-encounter noon siya ngayon. Una, poor people or maybe poor nations are subjugated by the operations of the global economy. So since then, they are actually the victim of globalization or maybe of development. Secondly, not all parts of the world gain equally. So ang ibig sabihin, unequal pa rin ang distribution ng wealth, and it's actually a critique to the claim of globalization that no one is in control of globalization, because if no one is in control of it, then why is there a stratification or maybe of inequality among countries? And then third, certain industries or social classes lose out. Um, so because of this, meron nga tayong tinatawag na hierarchy. And normally, yung mga social classes na natatalo ay nasa baba. And then lastly, the poor tend to suffer most when forced to repay debts. So, kung maobserbahan natin, yung mga less developed countries, they are still in the condition or situation where they allocate parang a portion of their resources to repay debts, or halimbawa sa Pilipinas umuutang tayo sa IMF, World Bank, and then sinasabi na we don't have the capacity na bayaran yung utang natin, so nire-restructure yan. Parang halimbawa you have to pay it instead of 1 year, nagiging 50 years. However, before we can renew our loan, merong mga tinatawag na structural adjustment programs na I think ay na-discuss ko na last time. Okay, and then, so ito naman yung period before the Bretton Woods system. So, yung war kasi ay parang isa sa mga factor kung bakit nagkaroon ng Bretton Woods Agreement. Kasi syempre nung nagkaroon ng war noong 1945, na-disrupt nito yung economic globalization. Um, so because of the war, there are actually fascist countries like Italy and Germany that moved into the direction of autarky. Yung autarky, ito yung instead of globalizing, these nations turn inward, and then their primary goal is to create as much as economic self-sufficiency as possible. Meaning to say, they wanted to make sure that should there be another world war, their country is economically sufficient to go on with domestic trade, or to make sure that all the commodities needed for running the economy are actually available. So, uh, it's actually an antithesis of globalization, yung autarky. Kasi nga, nagsasarado ka ng ano mo, ng boundaries mo, and then nagkakaroon ka ng barriers to trade. Halimbawa, you do not allow your local investors to export or to import parang commodities. So, during this period, yung United States tsaka yung United Kingdom, parang ang ano nila, ang goal nila is actually to push for a more open international economy. And then, so, during and after the war, ito yung mga problems that the globe or the world encountered. Una, yung fear of the recurrence of the Great Depression after the end of the war. So, syempre after the war, devastated ang mga economies. Kailangan mo i-rehabilitate, kailangan din na yung mga infrastructures ay mabuild. So, parang nagkaroon sila ng fear na baka maulit-ulit yung Great Depression. Kasi sa Great Depression, nagkaroon ng inflation, and then mataas ang unemployment rate, and then yung quality of life ay bumaba. So parang natatakot ang mga nation states na ma-experience ulit itong period na ito. And then nagkaroon din ng fear of resurrection of barriers to trade and the free flow of money. So parang natakot ulit ang mga nation states na baka magkaroon ng barrier to trade. Ibig sabihin, kapag nagkaroon ng barrier to trade and they're actually producing commodities for export, syempre saan nila dadalan yung mga commodities na yon? And then in the same manner that kung yung kanilang local economy o yung day-to-day life ng mga tao ay nakabatay sa mga resources coming from other countries, parang ano siya, hindi siya magiging maganda para sa social condition ng mga tao. At kapag yung free flow ng money nilagyan mo ng barrier, mapipili yan ng mga nation states dahil mawawala ng mga foreign investors. So nagkaroon sila ng another concern, which is the promotion of financial stability. Parang ang challenge ay paano magiging stable ang mga bansa kung katatapos lang ng war. So, noong 1944, sa Mount Washington Hotel sa Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, nagkaroon dito ng meeting ang mga bansa. So, ang parang pinaka um, topic nila dito ay yung depression, yung economic depression, meaning to say yung pagbagsak ng ekonomiya. And they thought na the reason for this depression is the lack of cooperation among nation states. So ang sinasabi nila, ang example daw, or tama, na mag-i-illustrate ng lack of cooperation ay yung pagkakaroon ng high tariffs and other import restrictions at saka mga protectionist practices ng mga government, tsaka yung kanilang practice na i-devalue nila yung kanilang mga currencies para magkaroon sila ng edge in global trade. O isa-isahin natin. Yung high tariff is actually not promoting globalization because pag sinabi nating tariff, these are the taxes on imported goods. So if you impose taxes on imported goods, magiging mas expensive yung exported goods, and then hindi siya magiging ganun ka-competitive sa local price ng product na similar dun sa goods na yun. So parang ano siya, barrier siya to exportation and importation. Pangalawa, na sinasabi dito, yung import restrictions na sometimes nation states have the tendency to protect the local economy, so they put restriction on imports. For instance, may quota lang na halimbawa, we can import rice pero ang tonelada lang ng bigas ay ganito to protect the local producers. And then, meron tayong pangatlo, mga protectionist practices. I don't know if you would still remember na ang US dati ay kinasuhan ng Brazil sa World Trade Organization kasi, di ba parang the idea of neoliberalism is that there should be limited government or lesser government interventions sa economic affairs ng bansa. Anong ginawa ng US noon? Yung US ay nag-finance ng yung cotton industry ata nila ay nag-invest ang US doon at sinubsidize nito to make sure na ang magiging source ng cotton sa mga t-shirts na ipoproduce nila ay yung kanilang mga ano doon, mga local producers. So ang Brazil during that time ay number one exporter ng cotton sa US. So parang sila ay pumunta sa World Trade Organization at sinabing US is defying the premises or actually the provisions of neoliberalism. So because of this, ang US, binayaran niya yung mga local producers ng cotton sa Brazil, batay na rin sa desisyon ng World Trade Organization. So yun yun. And then yung propensity of government to devalue their currencies. Actually, ginawa ito dati ng China. Kasi tingnan ninyo magdadala tayo ng ating products sa world market. Kung madedevalue for instance ang peso in comparison to dollar, halimbawa, ang kada isang t-shirt o isang kilo ng mangga, Philippine mango na ibebenta natin, ang value niyan for instance ay $1, yung isang kilo, 50 pesos, sabihin natin, okay, hypothetical. Kapag nag-devalue yung ating pera, kunwari ang magiging palitan ay 1 peso is equal to, $1 is equal to 100 pesos. So, ibig sabihin yung $1, dalawang mangga na ang mabibili niya kasi nag-devalue tayo ng currency. So, anong implication nito? Mas gugustuhin ng mga importers na bumili ng Philippine mango kasi nga parang ang bagsak presyo niya, para siyang race to the bottom. So itong mga sinasabi kong mga ito ay hindi siya nakakatulong para maiangat natin yung world economy. So parang ang sinasabi, baka siya pwedeng mag-lead into depression. So dito naman, dito naman, merong 5 key elements yung Bretton Woods system. So, ano ba yung pinag-usapan doon? Una, yung bawat participating state ay i-establish nila ano ba yung value ng currency nila in terms of gold or its equivalent. Halimbawa, kunwari, yung isang bar ng gold sa Pilipinas, ang value natin dito ay 1 million. Parang ganon. Ang US naman, ipepeg niya rin. Halimbawa, sasabihin ng US na yung $50,000, ang equivalent niyan ay isang bar ng gold. So, ang mangyari, parang nasa gitna ng peso at dollar yung gold. So, parang magkakaroon ka ng conversion para malaman mo yung exchange rate. To make sure na hindi magkakaroon ng problem sa exchange rate, nag-create ng isang organization, ito yung International Monetary Fund, to make sure that it will oversee and it will stabilize exchange rates. At isa sa mga provisions dito, pwedeng gumalaw ang exchange rate pero plus or minus 1% margin lang. So, ibig sabihin ng plus or minus 1% margin, kunwari, 51:50 ang peso to dollar, dollar to peso exchange rate. So, ano bang 1% for instance ng 50? 0.5? O, ibig sabihin, kung kung gagalaw yung piso ay magiging 50.5 lang o kaya naman 49.5. Hindi pwedeng from 50 ay magiging 60. And then sabi dito, yung mga member states ay pumayag sila na alisin lahat ng restriction sa paggamit ng kanilang currency for international trade. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Meaning to say, everything is convertible to dollar. So if you go to Africa, you can use your Philippine peso to be converted into dollar, tapos may convert mo sa kanilang local currency. So hindi pwede na hindi mo papayagan na yung isang currency na bahagi ng Bretton Woods parang meeting ay hindi mo ipapa-convert. Okay? And then ang nangyari dito, yung entire system na ay binatay na sa US dollar. So yun ang pinaka naging world currency. Anong reason kung bakit? Kasi during that time, US ang may pinakamadaming supply ng gold. So naisip nila na parang it's proper din na yun ang maging parang world currency. And then meron pa tayong mga economic organizations na na-create during this Bretton Woods Agreement. So meron kang GATT o yung General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. So ang idea lang naman din nito actually is to eliminate all the barriers to trade such as tariffs. So meaning to say, kasi ang tariff, di ba sabi ko sa inyo, ay importante siya to protect the domestic economy. Halimbawa kasi, kunwari, ang bilihan ang isang kilo ng bigas, sabi natin ay 40 pesos. Halimbawa, magbibenta sa atin ang Vietnam ng bigas dahil surplus yung bigas nila, they are willing to sell it at a lower price. Halimbawa, bebenta nila ng 30 pesos. So, ibig sabihin, pag ganun nang nangyari, wala kang tariff, papasok dito, 30 pesos, 40 sa atin. So, malulugi yung ating mga farmers. So, para protektahan sila, nagkakaroon ng taripa. Ang taripa ay taxes doon. Halimbawa, ang tax natin dun sa imported na bigas per kilo, sabi natin ay 50% ng markup price. So, ano bang 50% ng 30? It's 15 pesos. So, 15 plus 30, magiging 45 pesos yung kanilang yung presyo ng kanilang product. So, ang sinasabi ng General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, dapat i-lower mo yung tariff para maging competitive yung presyo ng mga imported products dun sa local products. Yung susunod, meron tayong World Trade Organization. Sa World Trade Organization naman ay connected siya sa mga may usapin ng trade katulad ng example ko kanina. Halimbawa ay kung meron bang protectionist practice na ginagawa ang isang bansa. Pero eventually yung GATT at yung WTO nagsama sila, tinawag siyang GATT-WTO. And then, meron kang IMF, nabanggit ko na nga kanina dito, pinopromote na yung macroeconomic stability sa mga member nations tsaka sa global economy. And then, meron kang World Bank. Yung World Bank naman, ito naman yung nagpo-provide ng fund, nagpapautang sa mga government-sponsored programs like yung 4Ps sa mga less developed countries. Okay? So, nagpo-provide siya ng parang ng assistance, analytical services doon sa mga ekonomista ng mga bansang ito. And then we have another player here, yung multinational corporation. Pag itong multinational corporation ay isa sa pinaka-major player sa globalization. At sinasabi na if we are to quantify them, there are about 61,000 MNCs in the world na kung saan yung production ng mga commodities ay meron silang 900,000 affiliates at sila ang nag-a-account ng 1/10 ng world's gross national product tsaka third ng total world export. Itong mga MNCs na ito ay, kung maalala nyo yung transnational corporation, mas malaki lang sila ng konti kasi 3 or more parang countries are actually into the running or are owning the corporation. And then here, yung multinational corporation, ito yung mga ginagawa nila. Sa kanila nanggagaling yung foreign direct investment. So, paano ba yung foreign direct investment? Sa madaling sabi, parang ganito, di ba yung mga presidente ng Pilipinas, they go overseas to actually look for foreign investors. Okay? Yung investment na ito, ang tawag dito ay foreign direct investment. Okay? And then, meron tayo ditong portfolio investment, pero hindi na natin masyado itatakil yan. Okay, hanggang dun na lang.